Welcome to the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. We're so glad to see you, at least some of you. And thanks to our viewers who've tuned in today. I have so many people to thank, and I won't list them all, but I am so grateful for all the volunteers who made this at least partial reopening come to be. It's so good to see your faces, at least half of them, that aren't covered up with masks and such. Thank you for being here, and thanks to all the efforts to open this up a little bit more and do it safely and with such incredible organization. It is impressive. I'm so glad you could be with us today. We've got a very special program, some good music, and the speaker today is my wife, and I'll try not to be so biased when I introduce her, but you are in for a treat, an extraordinary message today. This month, we're still celebrating the theme of inclusion in action. And I appreciate your action to be included with us here today, either online or right here in person. We're going to open with a song written by our own Lezlee Monroe, an awesome new song called Would You Like To? Just say yes. When you sing, I'm just going to make a suggestion that you put your mask on. I know that's a strange thing to do, but when you sing, when you use that energy, you're actually kind of a propellant of those droplets, and I know it'll feel strange to sing with a mask on, but it is probably the safest thing to do. And we will still hear you, and I will celebrate your voices when they come out. Please join us for this opening song.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Grab you a soda, hang your head by the stair. It feels so good to see you again, to look in your eyes and take your heart in. How nice to see you today. There's something I want to say. Hey, would you like to come along? Woo! And dance with me to this song. Sing it loud and free. All in harmony. Would you like to? Would you like to? Put your feet up, let off some steam. Dump out your worries, spill your bucket of dreams. When we let our hearts open wide, we share the treasures waiting inside. You can speak your truth underneath my sacred roof, 'cause I would like to come along, woo, and dance with you to your song. Sing it loud and free. In harmony. I would like to. I would like to. I've got melody, you've got words of peace. Together we are strong.
Good morning, and welcome to the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living Love Stream. And I'm delighted to say we are having our first in-person service. My name is Selena Baugh, and I am your service hostess this morning, I guess. Our practitioner holding high watch from home this morning is Jim Ferris. Jim will be in prayer, knowing that this service serves the highest and best for all. Our prayer practitioner here with us this morning is Teresa Martin, who will be sharing a reading and leading us in prayer a little later. Our center is a spiritual community that teaches a philosophy for daily living based on spiritual principles and practices that are universal among other religions, all religions, I should say. We honor all pathways by which people seek to know and connect with the divine. We work on our individual consciousness so that we can help make the world a better place. Please join me in claiming our purpose statement. We are an open, welcoming community, celebrating our divinity, loving our humanity, and nurturing our journeys of spiritual discovery. I encourage you to sign up for our weekly email newsletter, and for all the latest information about what is happening at our center and home office, you can always visit the announcement page on our website, which is www.spirituallyfree.org. As Rick said, our overall theme for this month of August is inclusion in action. And today, our own Chamaigne Sharette will be speaking on the theme, Who Are We? I know, I'm excited. Next week, our own Reverend Jan Ewing will be speaking on the theme, Colorblind or Colorful. Every Sunday at 1 p.m., Reverend Myrna Hurst is hosting a community Zoom meeting. You can find a link and all the information needed to drop in on that Zoom meeting on our website. It was originally started at noon, but with the live service, you wanted people to have a chance to get home if they wanted and join, so now it'll be at 1 p.m. Also, the second Tuesday of every month, Reverend Myrna hosts the Wizards and Crones. This was a monthly gathering. It used to be in person, but right now it's being done via Zoom. It will continue on Zoom for a while longer. And to find out how to access that meeting, again, you can go to our website where there is a link. Both of these Zoom gatherings are most excellent ways to get to know and stay in contact with other community members. I've even dropped in on the Sunday Zoom meeting, and it was great fun to see other faces there that can't be with us in person. Our practitioners are always available to provide prayer support, and you can submit an online prayer request through a link on our website. Or if you prefer, you can request a call from a practitioner, and one of our practitioners will give you a call. As we move into our service this morning, I want you to take some nice, deep breaths and allow Teresa's reading and the centering music to bring you fully present to the source of all life as Teresa leads us in prayer.
Today's reading is from a book by Commitment to Love by Maureen Moss. And the title of it is Blessings and Commitment of Knowing Who You Are. The love that you are is alchemy, the all-chemistry of God. Love, when expressed, changes everything in its midst. A person, a plant, a rock, a pet, food, circumstances, a situation, a home. Love is the only power that exists that can never lose momentum and is the only power that can evoke permanent change. The love that you are means that you have the power to immediately rise above all personal despair and ascend beyond the limited belief system of the mortal mind. It means you have the power to change all circumstances shadowed by darkness into pure light. You, beloveds, have the ability to rise above mortal understanding and tap into the wisdom of truth of God and use it in all circumstances. The love that you are means that you carry within you peace beyond all understanding. It means that you have the ability to be free from the tyranny of your mind and ego and to be the master of your life. Being love means that you are a part of the highest intelligence of the universe. It means you have nothing more to strive for, since there is nothing greater to be. Being love means that you are responsible for gathering all of your fractured self, the parts that you have abandoned or become ashamed of, and carry them tenderly to the altar of your heart for repair.
The God in me beholds the God in you. All is beautiful, all is well, all is beautiful, all is well. The God in me beholds the God in you. The God in me beholds the God in you. Spirit within me, Spirit around me, Spirit in all that I do. Wisdom and beauty and love born in all of us. I see the light within you. The God in me beholds the God in you. The God in me beholds the God in you. All is beautiful, all is well, all is beautiful, all is well, all is beautiful, all is well, all is beautiful, all is well.
As this love is beautiful and well and within, I close my eyes and go to that place within where there is peace, where there is tranquility, where there is divine love. And I move from that space of love into harmony with the universe. I move into joy and love and happiness and appreciation and gratitude for all that exists and for all that God exists in. That divine sense lives as me, through me and as me. It is here present at every moment in time. I remind myself daily of my connection to this source, this comfort, this support. I experience the blessings of the divine each day as I move throughout my day. I am surrounded by blessings. I am surrounded by love. And for this day and for this service and for all who are attending, both here present and online, I am grateful. You are blessed. I send you my blessing. You are filled with grace and love. I give thanks as together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Teresa. So, including this theme of the month, Inclusion in Action, I invite you to sing along with this great song by Daniel Nahmod. We breathe the same air.
Well, it's an idea whose time has come. A new generation decides as one of the same small planet we are born. It's never been so obvious before. We breathe the same air, drink the same water, walk the same earth, kiss the same sky. We breathe the same air, and I think we ought to get along better, you and I. The future of history is crystal clear. The borders between us will disappear. Of the same small planet we are born, and there's no foreign country anymore. We breathe the same air, drink the same water, walk the same earth, kiss the same sky. We breathe the same air, and I think we ought to get along better, you and I. Well, some say I'm out of touch with the times. This world's no place for a vision like mine, but still I can see it, and still I believe there's too many lives on the line. There's so much on the line. We breathe the same air, drink the same water, walk the same earth, kiss the same sky. We breathe the same air, and I think we ought to get along better, you and I. We breathe the same air, drink the same water, walk the same earth, kiss the same sky. We breathe the same air, and I think we ought to get along better, you and I. You and I.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for singing along. It's my privilege to introduce our special music today. We had planned something very exciting, a marvelous upcoming talent, Karuna Jain. And she woke up feeling awful this morning. And she showed up anyway. She doesn't have a fever. She's not infectious or anything. She just doesn't feel good and is quite dizzy and doesn't feel good enough to sing and share her gifts with us. And we're so sorry about that. I know she was looking forward to it. Certainly we were. I promise we will reschedule her, and you'll get a chance to hear this just incredible talent. And I'm grateful to our Lezlee Monroe for stepping up to fill in, to offer a song in line with this theme. Lezlee, a very accomplished musician, and singer-songwriter herself. Please welcome Lezlee Monroe.
Thank you. I'm emotional because my heart is very full right now. I got to participate in a weekend of events that there was so much love that I'm still feeling that. And that's wonderful. Anyway, I really appreciated the message, going to the altar and coming into self-forgiveness. One of the things I've been doing is I open up my little photo albums and my recording albums, and I take a look at that young girl I was, that young woman I was, and I notice sometimes I'm embarrassed and I don't want to look at that or listen to that. And I'm in a process of being able to love those young girls that I was and those young women that I was, in their rebellion, in their doing things wrong, and in their self-judgment, and embracing them and bringing them back to me. So this song came up for me, which feels so perfect for this message, from Karen Drucker, and feel free to sing along with me. I will be gentle with myself.
I will be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself. And I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. I will be tender with my heart. I will be tender with my heart. And I will hold my heart like a newborn baby child. I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will be easy on myself. I will be easy on myself. And I will love myself like a newborn baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. Now I know I am gentle with myself. I am gentle with myself. And I hold myself like a newborn baby child. And I rock myself like a newborn baby child. And I will rock myself like a newborn baby child.
Thank you, Lezlee. What a good fit. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Okay, husband, suspend, relationship, biasness. This young woman I've come to know is just extraordinary. There was so much of her life hidden from most of the community, certainly most of the country and the world. She was dealing with illness and some really incredible challenges, much like many of you have. But Chamaigne in particular, with emotional and physical challenges. She spent a lot of her adolescent to early adulthood in bed. I mean, constantly having to be served just to get some sustenance. She slept a lot. But she also did maybe some superhuman introspection. Her self-awareness blows me away, such that at 46 years old, oh, I said her age. Her wisdom is well beyond her years. I'm so grateful for her part in my life. I'm so grateful for her part in this community. The extraordinary gifts she has and renewed energy has allowed her to shine quite a bit more the last couple of years. And I don't think she even knew that she could stand up here and give a talk. It's an extraordinary message today from an extraordinary person. Let's welcome Chamaigne Sharette.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I didn't know I could stand up here and give a talk. The first time I came to Salt Lake Center, and the first time I sang at Salt Lake Center, I didn't know how long I'd be asked to stand. And during the announcements, my legs were shaking. I had not stood that long for 20 years. And my legs were shaking, and I thought, do I leave the stage? Do I sit on the floor? So I'm really pleased to be here with you and able to stand and share my thoughts with you. Thank you, Rick. That was really sweet. So, 7-year-old Larry wrote a letter to God. Dear God, maybe Cain and Abel would not have killed each other if they had their own rooms. That's what my mom did for me and my brother. Today I'm going to talk about knowing who you are and how that supports the peace and well-being of the whole world. The talk title I was given is Who Are We? But I thought it would be more fun to call it, Who Do You Think You Are? And I would be remiss if I didn't start by welcoming you all to our first live service. It's so good to see you all. This is exciting. And thank you to all the people who did the hard work of making this possible. I want to create a space of welcome for this talk. I want to welcome your best self and your worst self, the self that feels alone and the self that knows we are one, the self that fears that the world is just a big mess, and the self that can feel the bubbling up of positive change in all this chaos. Welcome. I have an experience, and I wonder if you do too, that the more my sense of identity is rooted in the spiritual truth of my being, the easier I find it to be consistently kind and compassionate. Because then I'm not caught up in defending my identity. So I have more attention available to actually see others and be compassionately present with them. And I believe every time that we choose kindness and compassion, we strengthen those tendencies in the world. So again, my belief is that the more our identities are rooted in the spiritual truth of our being, the easier we find it to consistently come from a place of love. And this has ripple effects for the whole world. I'm going to share a story from my life which begins with elements of the opposite, identities attached to more temporal things, which can lead to defensiveness and blame and even dehumanizing others, and the ripple effects out from there. When I was a kid, from about age 5 to 8, my older siblings and I would go back and forth between our mom's house and our dad's house. Dad had not yet gotten the memo about how you're not supposed to complain about your ex to the kids. And one of my dad's main narratives in life was that I would have been successful if I hadn't been undermined. And he had a few of those stories about Mom. Looking back, I can recognize these as identity-defending stories. His identity was sourced in financial and marital success. Financial hardship can be hard on the ego. Divorce can be hard on the ego. Usually, divorce yields two people that are eager to tell anyone who will listen how they did what they had to do. Nobody could stay married to that person, right? As silly as it may seem to turn to your own young children for validation, I'm sure he was motivated by some guilt and wanted us to understand. And he may have been even afraid that Mom would talk bad about him and he wanted to beat her to it. I don't know. All three of us kids were at an age where our identities were sourced in our parents. We weren't differentiated yet, so we didn't really have the wherewithal to do anything but believe Dad, especially when we were with him. Yeah, Mom is so neurotic. We'd go back to Mom's house ready to dislike her in solidarity with Dad, and we'd misbehave in any way we could think of. I don't know what not picking up my room had to do with solidarity with Dad, but it made sense to me at the time. Inevitably, Mom would ask what the heck was going on with us. And being the youngest, I'd be the first to spill the beans. My older siblings would fill in the details so it made sense. And of course, then we'd all agree with her. She'd tell us her side of the story. Daddy's delusional. One day, Mom's family counselor told us why it's not cool for parents to complain about each other to the kids. And Mom vowed never to do it anymore. And we kids decided we were going to tell Dad not to complain about Mom. Of course, Dad heartily agreed. He even somehow made it sound like it was his idea all along. And being the youngest, I was very impressed. Unfortunately, Dad had so much angst, it just didn't seem possible for him to keep those stories in. He'd tell us, we'd challenge his point of view with Mom's point of view, and then he'd tell us why his point of view is right, and then we'd get drawn in. And then after the visit, the three of us would debrief. It happened again, didn't it? Yeah. We'd fight about which parent was telling the truth and which kid was the most impressionable. That would be me. Eventually, we all got to the point where we would just tune him out, even impressionable me. I remember the feeling of putting up a wall so that his stories couldn't pierce through and activate my compassion and my solidarity. And looking back, I see that in order to do that, I had to dehumanize him a bit. That might seem like a strong word, dehumanize, but I think it's the beginning of dehumanization when we make decisions about a person that essentially write them off and dismiss them. They're stupid, ridiculous, delusional. They have issues. One of my mom's friends called him a buffoon. That was my favorite because it sounds like an animal. In order to adopt a dismissive attitude toward Dad's stories, I had to disconnect from my own humanity a bit. An adult may have been able to balance boundaries and compassion, but that's a little sophisticated for a 7-year-old. One blessing in all this is that I learned a cool lesson about human behavior at an early age. My 2 siblings and I noticed that when Dad would complain about Mom, he wouldn't be describing her, he'd be describing himself. And when Mom got drawn into complaining back, she'd be describing herself. I thought this was a very interesting realization, so I thought I'd share it with my parents. If memory serves, that didn't go over well. But later, Dad learned this principle in a workshop where they were taught that what bugs us is what we need to work on in ourselves. If you can spot it, you got it. During the workshop, everybody got up to tell their definition of success. Some guy got up and said, "My definition of success is to make such a positive difference in the world that I'll be remembered for it. I will accumulate enough wealth to be a well-known philanthropist, and I'll teach others to do the same." And my dad went to the instructor later and said, "I am so irritated by that guy. I'm angry, but I don't see what it points to that I need to work on in myself." And the instructor said, "Well, why did it bug you?" He said, "Well, he's just trying to impress." Oh. Dad was into all sorts of personal growth things, positive mental attitude and subliminal tapes to reprogram his subconscious mind for success. And sometimes he'd drag us along to multi-level marketing meetings where he'd make us say positive affirmations as we introduced ourselves. It was so embarrassing. But my siblings and I got drawn into the business concepts anyway, and we'd get all excited about getting in Dad's downline and getting rich and moving to Belize. But then we'd debrief after the visit. It happened again, didn't it? Some of us would deny having gotten excited about multi-level marketing, and some of us would just decide to keep believing in secret. That would be me. Mom got a different job and moved us out of state, so I didn't see Dad a lot through my adolescence. I was always excited to see him and mostly enjoyed his company, but he'd inevitably tell all of his stories about the horrors of divorce and custody battles and child support issues and all the business deals that Mom and many other people had prevented him from succeeding in. We would glaze over or wait till he broke eye contact and then scurry out of the room. And we kids would definitely not make eye contact with each other, because if there's anything that a teenager in an awkward situation does not need, is to see their sibling stifling a giggle. Inappropriate laughter is twice as contagious as a yawn, and 10 times as rude. It wasn't just stories of getting gypped that he would regale us with. We ultra-liberal feminist teenagers got a full report on everything Rush Limbaugh had to say. He had a few attitudes that were not natural to us, a wee mismatch in worldviews. But we had some good times too. When I was in high school, he would smuggle me into karaoke bars, upscale ones, and get me a Shirley Temple and give the manager a big tip and a wink so that I could stay there and sing. On the car ride home, we'd sing songs from old movies and sometimes whistle in harmony. He could whistle like Bing Crosby. It was delightful. After high school, I started getting into some spiritual teachings. All my musician friends were New Agers into the Urantia book and A Course in Miracles, and those were a little far out for me at the time. You know, my identity was I'm an atheist. My mom, dad, siblings, all atheists. That was the best way, right? But I had this one friend who really wanted me to read this new book that came out so bad that he bought me a copy and drove it to my house and dropped it off. It was called Conversations with God. Rocked my world. I adopted a whole new understanding of who I am: eternal, interconnected, powerful, responsible for my experience. I adopted the belief that my consciousness development had global and eternal impact. I also went on a self-styled vision quest where I had a mystical experience of oneness, so it no longer operated as just a belief for me. It changed the way I interacted with my dad. When being a liberal, feminist, vegetarian hippie was my identity, instead of just some preferences and points of view, among many others, I felt much less defensive and incensed by his preferences and points of view. I became more genuinely curious about his experience. I didn't see Dad too much during that time. He was a long-haul truck driver then, and we didn't have cell phones back then. But hey, who needs cell phones when you have good old-fashioned premonitions? I had a dream that he was in a wheelchair, and then about a month later, I got a phone call, or that is, I intercepted a phone call. I had a moving truck that was fully loaded, and I stopped by Mom's house to say goodbye before I moved several states away. And when I walked in, she was on the phone with my brother, who had called to say that Dad was in the hospital. Brother wasn't supposed to tell me, but he did since I walked in during the phone call. I decided to unpack the moving truck and drive 2 states away in that direction instead of 6 states away in that direction. And I spent the next month with my dad until he passed away. We had a lot of healing conversations, and one particular I'd like to share with you. So remember when I talked about glazing over every time he'd tell his stories, every visit? Well, while he was dying and kind of getting mentally sluggish, he would tell those stories every day. I tried to help him find some closure, and it seemed to be working, because when we'd have a good conversation about something, he would stop telling that story. In the last week of his life, I slept in the spare bed in his nursing home room. And he was on heavy doses of morphine, and he'd drift in and out of sleep a lot. And every time he'd wake up, even if he'd only slept for 2 minutes, it would be a new day for him. He'd ask, "What day is it?" He was hoping I'd say Thursday, because that's when his mom and siblings were coming in to say goodbye. At one point, he said, "I'm sorry, but it's getting really hard to believe you. It's been Monday for 2 weeks." The other thing he'd do each time he'd awaken was keep telling this one remaining story that seemed to be still bothering him. It was when my brother was old enough to choose who to live with, and he chose to live with Mom. Dad would tell me the story with so much blame in it, it was hard to take him seriously. He'd talk about how messed up he knew my brother was going to get, being raised by a neurotic feminist in a house with only women, and how Mom must have manipulated him into it somehow, or maybe she just wanted more child support. The storytelling was so over the top, it was just hard to engage with. But finally, it dawned on me, this isn't a story about Mom. This is a story about him losing his son. So the next time he started in, "He moved back in with your mother," I jumped in. "That must have been really hard for you." And it was like I had reached out and popped a bubble that he had been in all his life. He gasped and looked up at me. Yes. I realized then how little eye contact there usually was during these stories. He probably found it hard to make eye contact with my glazed over, avoidant eyes. But now we were face to face and heart to heart. I asked him what it was like for him to have my brother live with them and then move away. I listened, and my heart ached for him. I asked him to tell me more about the specific worries he had, and this time he focused not on my mom, but on my brother. They did things together, and he wanted more time to teach him things. He really felt that a boy needs a father, and he wanted to be that. After asking lots of questions and listening carefully, I said, you know how he said that he moved back with Mom because his little sisters needed him? Well, he was right about that. I probably talked for 30 minutes about all the things my brother did for me and with me. in metal shop, he made me a copper ring. It made my fingers green, but it was just my size, and I loved it. And we had barter fairs where we'd lay out all of our toys and trade them. And we had one form of currency also, apples. My mom rationed apples because he could eat a bushel in a day. Pretty soon, my brother realized that if he was trading non-consumable goods for consumable goods, I would accumulate all the wealth. So he went into the service business and started making me jewelry out of wire hangers. One time I tried to get him to make me a pair of eyeglasses, but I think Mom put the kibosh on that because of the sharp edges. One time he tried to sell me for 5 apples the secret to how you can never have to vacuum your room again. The secret is you close the bedroom door, turn on the vacuum so Mom will hear it, and then just leave it sitting there and go back to playing. He learned an important principle of capitalism that day. It's called what the market will bear. I did not pay him any apples for this vacuuming secret. What my brother did teach me is basic computer programming skills, wilderness survival skills, and why making a waterbed for our new cat was not a good idea. But he ended up helping me make it anyway. He also read me the entire Tolkien trilogy, thick books, including making up melodies so that he could sing to me the Hobbit hiking songs, because they were songs. I had to know how they went. I even remember the melodies. Far over the misty mountains we go. So I finished this long list of stories to Dad, and I told him, I know that it was a huge loss for you, but I benefited from it, so it wasn't for nothing, and thank you for your sacrifice. He said, I had no idea. I thought he spent his whole life alone in his room playing Dungeons and Dragons. There was a lot of that too, but it wasn't his whole life. What was most significant to me is that Dad never told that story again, even though this storytelling by that point seemed to be quite involuntary. So it really meant to me that something had shifted in him. Instead, we talked about the meaning of life and life lessons learned, and I made tape recordings of everything. I tried really hard. I was 22 years old. I tried really hard to imagine what would my older self wish that I had asked him. And I asked him the most profound questions I could. And we talked about what he expected to see on the other side and how he might even send me a sign if he could. A friend had given me a book by hospice nurses about how dying people often speak in symbolic language. So when I told him his parents and siblings were coming in on Thursday, he started saying things like, "What color is Thursday's car? I'm going to need to change the license plates." And then pretty soon he started making it clear he wasn't going to be able to wait till Thursday. So on a Monday, I urged his family to fly in on Tuesday, and what they did, and he died on Tuesday night. The last day of his life, he had so many visitors crowded in his room that he was the envy of the nursing home. One woman kept wheeling around and saying, "Let me in, I'm the wife." And then a nurse would wheel her away, but she'd just come back around the other side. "Let me in, I'm the daughter." Mom also flew in to say goodbye to Dad. She had the last coherent conversation with him. I confess I eavesdropped from outside the room. They both said, "I'm sorry," and "I forgive you," and we made some pretty cool kids, didn't we? The general manager of the nursing home stood in the doorway at one point. I said, "Do you need to talk to me?" He says, "No, there's not a lot of kindness in this business. It's sometimes hard to keep going. I just wanted to take this all in." I began this talk by saying that the more we source our identities in the spiritual truth of our being, the easier it is to come from a place of love, because we're more secure in our identities. We have less need to defensively project and dehumanize. Taking one slice of this story about my dad, it was a story about a man who had a great deal of pain about some events in his life, and he did a lot of blaming and villainizing, probably because he couldn't stand what the stories seemed to mean about him. When we have someone else to blame, we don't have to look at our part. The sad thing is that Dad carried so much pain with him for 20 years. When he got some new information and another way of looking at it, it was so healing for him. And this new perspective was available the whole time. It didn't come to him till his deathbed, because by storytelling in a way that dehumanized Mom, it made us kids tune out and dehumanize him. And if he hadn't thought Mom was the enemy, he might have talked to her more and gotten more information about what was going on in my brother's life. So who are the villains in your life? And I wonder if you're carrying stories that are causing you pain that maybe you don't need to be. For us kids, closing off our hearts cut us off a bit from our own humanity as well. As teenagers, we didn't hesitate to make fun of him behind his back, and that really has a way of locking in your beliefs about a person. Have you noticed that the moment you speak negatively about someone, you're immediately invested in collecting more evidence that what you said was true? Because if it turns out you're wrong, that means you're mean. And I'm not the kind of person that would say mean things about someone that weren't true. So the moment you speak negatively about someone, you create a competition between the way you see them and the way you see yourself. It's even worse if you speak unkind or critical things to someone, because if there's one thing worse about being wrong in the comfort of your own home, it's being wrong in public. If you don't have a strong enough sense of self to admit that you were wrong, you must continue to see that other person in a negative light. That's why they say that in order to apologize, you have to swallow your pride. The best advice I ever got was that if someone is invested in seeing you in a certain way, anything you say will be twisted to help them continue to see you in that certain way. And why do people get invested in seeing you in that way? Because of what they've decided you mean to their identity. It always boils down to that, it seems. I don't think I would have had the ability to be present to my dad's more vulnerable feelings if I had not broadened my sense of who I am and made a practice of questioning my judgments. I really think that the stories we make up about other people's mental health are usually wrong, maybe 75% of the time. And stories we make up about other people being unworthy of love and irredeemable are wrong 100% of the time. There are endless memes on the internet about how good and right it is to get toxic people out of your life. I don't believe there are such a thing as toxic people, only toxic behavior patterns. The way we say it matters because the way we say it is the way we see it and the way we invite others to see it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm well acquainted with the need for healthy boundaries, but I think a lot of times we put up unnecessary walls and call them healthy boundaries. I wonder if sometimes we forget that our spiritual quest isn't just to realize our oneness with God, but also to realize our oneness with each other. Are we all getting better at protecting ourselves from toxic people, or are we avoiding the hard work of softening our hearts? I'm not speaking as one who's figured all this out. I'm speaking about something that I wrestle with every day. Every time I feel self-righteous blame rise up in me, I feel how powerful it is. To have a dismissive attitude towards someone really helps you walk away. It prolongs my suffering when I refuse to blame and dismiss. But the avoidance of suffering isn't necessarily my goal. My goal is to see the truth of things. Each of us are the beloved of God. Who am I to disdain the beloved of God? Who am I to treat another human being, even in the privacy of my own thoughts, as if they were irredeemable, a lost cause? It's just not the truth. I do know that I get to trust my experience and protect myself appropriately with healthy boundaries. And I get to do this in the energy of love and humility, in the consciousness of oneness. As long as I'm invested in holding my story about someone in place, I know my work is not done. Thomas Merton said, "The beginning of love is the will to let those we love be perfectly themselves, the resolution not to twist them to fit our own image. If in loving them we do not love what they are, but only their potential likeness to ourselves, then we do not love them. We only love the reflection of ourselves we find in them." I wrote a second verse, if you will. The end of contempt is the will to let another person be perfectly themselves, the resolution not to twist them to fit our projected image. If we do not see them for what they are, but only see a story that restores our image of ourselves, then we do not know them. We only know the reflection of ourselves we find in them. The CSL Diversity and Inclusion Commission wrote, "The work of coming to know and love the self, and the work of coming to be able to actually see other people and love them for who they are is divine work. It is the work of seeing, knowing, and loving God more deeply. It is the act of being awake to the truth that the soul of the universe is our soul too." I do believe that coming to love ourselves and see each other for reals is divine work, and it has ripple effects through the world. Philosopher Charles Eisenstein puts it this way: "In the story of interbeing," and by that he means a profound and literal oneness, not just interdependence, but interbeing. In the story of interbeing, a theory of change that makes a lot of sense is the theory of morphic resonance. It says that any change that happens in one place generates a field of change so that the same type of change is more likely in another place. This theory of morphic resonance is one of the explanations for why things get invented at the same time all over the world. So back to Charles Eisenstein, he says, "Acts of kindness and compassion strengthen the field of kindness and compassion. And maybe when others are faced with choices, there's a little more support in the psychic atmosphere to choose compassion. Every time you've chosen patience with somebody, you've made an imprint on them. Every time you've stood in that column of love that is projected from the most beautiful future you can imagine onto the present, and you've spoken from that place and acted from that place. You've made an imprint on everyone you've engaged with. You've become a part of who they become. You've helped to create a world aligned with those qualities." So to close, I'll summarize it this way. It's a paradox. Okay, thanks, bye. Sourcing my identity in the spiritual truth of my being helps create a strong enough sense of self that I no longer need others to be canvases upon which I paint villains, or mirrors in which I admire myself. Identity-defending projections blind us to what's true about ourselves and about others. Whatever healthy boundaries we create, it is our come from that makes the difference. No matter the offense or the perceived offense, let us honor our own truth and yet at the same time not hold others to how we see them, but bless and release them to live their best lives in freedom and joy. Our oneness calls me to love. Our individuation calls me to let go and let others be perfectly themselves. To love is to remember that my actions, words, thoughts, and energy leave imprints on others, which are part of who they become. To let go is to recognize that I tend to see others not as they are, but as I am. And I'd rather see what's real than be right. We are one, and yet we are each on our individual journey. It's a much more beautiful experience if we can truly see each other along the way. 11-year-old Eugene also wrote a letter to God. "Dear God, I didn't think orange went with purple until I saw the sunset you made on Tuesday. That was cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. For our prayer, I'd like to read a prayer that Ernest Holmes wrote. It's called A Prayer for World Peace. I know there is but one mind, which is the mind of God, in which all people live and move and have their being. I know there is a divine pattern for humanity, and within this pattern there is infinite harmony and peace, cooperation, unity, and mutual helpfulness. I know that the mind of man, being one with the mind of God, shall discover the method, the way, and the means best fitted to permit the flow of divine love between individuals and nations. Thus, harmony, peace, cooperation, unity, and mutual helpfulness will be experienced by all. I know there shall be a free interchange of ideas, of cultures, of spiritual concepts, of ethics, of educational systems, and of scientific discoveries, for all good belongs to all alike. I know that because the divine mind has created us all, we are bound together in one infinite and perfect unity. In bringing about world peace, I know that all people and all nations will remain individual but unified for the common purpose of promoting peace, happiness, harmony, and prosperity. I know that deep within every person, the divine pattern of perfect peace is already implanted. I now declare that in each person and in leaders of thought everywhere, this pattern moves into action and form to the end that all nations and all people shall live together in peace, harmony, and prosperity forever. And so it is now.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I give. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Thank you, Chamaigne. That was wonderful. We are so blessed to have you. And we are so blessed. And of course, this is our time of conscious giving, which is at our center is another spiritual practice. Something we do for our own spiritual health and well-being. And as we are having our services remotely, and now, of course, we're back in action or back in service. So it's lovely to see you all here. And if you wish to contribute, we have a box in the foyer. And if you want to leave a donation, we would be happy to receive it. We are thankful and grateful for your support and your continued support for the financial health of the centre. All our expenses are still continuing as they were when we were in full swing. So thank you for continuing to give. And now I invite you to bring your gift to your heart as we say our affirmation. It is on the screen. Divine love, as me, multiplies and blesses all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Filled with gratitude, I let this be, and so it is.
All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need
little special music from Chamaigne.
Just a little ditty. It's called Nature Boy. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he traveled very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, one magic day, he came my way. And as we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
Beautiful. You know, I had this vision of you and your dad coming home after a karaoke bar experience and singing that together in your car. That's a beautiful picture. Thank you all for coming today. Thanks for tuning in, those of you online. Remember, there is a Zoom chat experience with our own Reverend Myrna Hurst. And that'll happen a little bit after 12, or I think it's 12:30?
1 o'clock.
Oh, okay, 1 o'clock. Thank you. So look forward to that. I wish we could all, just gather together in the foyer and hug each other. It's just not that reality. So I'll just picture it in my mind, and I invite you to do the same. As you exit, those of you that are here, we'd appreciate it if the back rows could exit through the foyer, and please don't linger in the foyer. Continue outside. If you want to gather in the parking lot and get closer together, you'd probably be a lot safer. But I appreciate your patience. And again, I appreciate all the volunteers that help facilitate this. We wish you well on your journey. It's really good to have those of you here. It's been nice to have an audience that's, physically before us. I wish you safety and health and love, and hope to see you again soon. We'll sing our closing song, which is very apropos. Together, we can change the world.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe it's not too late. Together we can change the world. Lay the puzzle pieces out. Find out what it's all about. Together we can change the world. I could start this by myself, but I'm asking for your help. Together we can change the world. Sailing past where it's been charted. Roll your sleeves up, let's get started. Together we can change the world. Together we can change the world. With our hands and with our hearts, we can dare to make a start. Together we can change the world. What if we spoke with one voice, knowing that we have a choice? Together we can change the world. I could stop this by myself, but I'm asking for your help. Together we can change the world. Sailing past where it's been charted. Roll your sleeves up, let's get started. Together we can change